Good morning. This is Den reading the County Press for Friday the 6th of July 2018 with...
Hello, I'm Sue.
Society News, Tuesday. The strollers will be meeting on Tuesday the 10th of July for a circular walk in Alveston. The minibus will be leaving Millbrook House at 9:30 a.m. They'll meet for coffee at Thompson's Nursery at approximately 10:45 a.m. The walk will set off just north of the old railway track. Lunch will follow afterwards at the Fighting Cocks at 12:15 p.m.
The Ride Swimming Group will be swimming this coming Tuesday the 10th of July at the Waterside Pool in Ryde. The swimming group has sole use of the pool during the session and there are lifeguards in attendance. If you're interested in joining the group, please contact the Society to advise us of your swimming ability and for us to advise the Waterside Pool.
Wednesday. The weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House this Wednesday the 11th of July. The coffee mornings are not just for blind and partially sighted people. Anybody can come along and have a cup of coffee or tea as well as a piece of cake.
We'll be holding the low vision drop-in between 10 a.m. and 12 noon on Wednesday the 11th of July. This is a weekly event to allow you to view and try the low vision equipment we have at the Society without the need for an appointment.
The book group will be meeting at Lord Louis Library on the Wednesday the 11th of July between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. We discuss the last month's book over tea and coffee and hand out the book for the next month. The books are available on CD or USB. Please contact Laura Jasper on 522205 for more information or email members@iwsb.org.uk.
Thursday. The Thursday social group are meeting on Thursday the 12th of July at Millbrook House. The group meets from 10:30 a.m. till 2 p.m. You can knit or just have a chat. Then later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics.
Any other news? Site for Wight takes pleasure in inviting service users to a Site for Wight members forum on Wednesday the 18th of July from 12 noon till 1:30 p.m. This will be held at Millbrook House. Please RSVP and send advance questions by the 16th of July 2018 either by phone on 522205 or email inquiries at iwsb.org.uk.
A message from the Talking News team. Please can we ask listeners to check if they have any extra Talking News wallets at home. We have a number of listeners who are using only one wallet when there should be two wallets for each person in the system. If you have any extra wallets, please return them so we can ensure a smooth and continuous supply of the Talking News each week. Thank you.
Message from Laura Jasper. Thank you to everyone who has replied to the consent form which was sent out last week. I have had a number of replies sent in the enclosed return envelope which have had a postage stamp put on them. Please remember that we stamp all return envelopes with an Articles for the Blind stamp, so you don't have to add extra postage to it. Just put it in a postbox or hand it in to the post office. Putting a stamp on it doesn't save the Society any money, as the Articles for the Blind system is provided free by Royal Mail. Thank you.
Local volunteers from the Guide Dogs charity will be visiting a number of venues over the next few months, talking about the work of the charity and how you can be involved. They will be at Ryde Library on the 21st of July and Ventnor Library on the 18th of August. All the library venue times will be 10:30 a.m. till 2:30 p.m. You can also find them at the Isle of Wight Community Club Open Day at Park Road in Cowes on August the 27th from 12 noon onwards.
Do you enjoy the activities and facilities provided by Site for Wight? Perhaps you've recently attended an activity or event and would like to wax lyrical about it. If so, then Chris Kane would like to hear from you. As part of our promoting well-being and supporting services and activities, we would like to hear your positive feedback, which will be part of a video promoting Sight for Wight. If you have a story you would like to enthuse about and don't mind being recorded on video, then please contact Chris Kane on 522 205 or email admin@iwsb.org.uk.
Scaffolding news. Please find below a list of known footway obstructions for works including scaffolding or hoarding. We are unable to include end dates as many are extended on a week-by-week basis, and also our tables and chairs permits that have been issued in the past week.
Bay and Ventnor area. There is currently scaffolding at Premier Inn 1-9 Esplanade, Sandown, 11A and 11B St John's Road, Sandown, the Toymaster 103 High Street, Sandown, scaffold up in Albion Road, 40 Little Stairs Road, Shanklin, Shanklin Hotel, East Mount Road, Shanklin, United Reformed Church, High Street, Shanklin, 39 Atherley Road, Shanklin, corner of Trinity Road and Madeira Road, Ventnor 1 Boniface Road and into Trinity Road, Ventnor, Hose Road Dixon at 1 High Street, Ventnor, 21 West Street, Ventnor.
There are currently hoardings at Wight City, Culver Parade, Sandown, Premier Inn 1-9 Esplanade, Sandown, United Reformed Church, High Street, Shanklin.
There are currently skips at 5 Hill Street, Sandown, 20 Lamoby Terrace, Lake.
New scaffolding is due up at Bar 64 High Street, Shanklin from the 23rd of July, Railway Bridge, Avenue Road, Sandown from the 10th of September.
Cowes area. There is currently scaffolding at Sainsbury's 129 to 130 High Street, Cowes, 91 High Street, Cowes, 93 High Street, Cowes, behind hoardings, 78 Park Road, Cowes, Carville Court, Terminus Road, Cowes, also in Carville Lane, 40 Osborne Road, East Cowes.
There are currently hoardings at 93 High Street, Cowes.
And new scaffolding is due up at Exmouth House, Bath Road, Cowes from the 16th of July.
Newport area. There is currently scaffolding at 18 Lugley Street, Newport, 46 to 48 Lugley Street, Newport, Domino's, St James Street, Newport, W.H. Smith, 55 to 56 High Street, Newport, Therapy, 2 to 8 Carisbrook Road, Newport, Unit 2, 32 to 39 High Street, Newport, Hurst and Son, Lugley Street, Newport, scaffold up in Lugley Street and Holyrood Street, Braunston House, Lugley Street, Newport, Age UK, 145 High Street, Newport, 17 Key Street, Newport.
There are currently skips at 65 Medina Avenue, Newport.
Ryde area. There is currently scaffolding at Clinton Cards, High Street, Ryde, W.H. Smith, 20 to 21 High Street, Ryde, 26 George Street, Ryde, 13 Cross Street, Ryde, 4 St Michael's Avenue, Ryde, Boots, 170 High Street, Ryde, McColl's, 47 to 48 Union Street, Ryde, Bakehouse, Stane Road, Seaview.
There are currently skips at 39 Harding Road, Ryde, 40 Harding Road, Ryde, 31 Osborne Road, Ryde, 33 Surrey Street, Ryde, Sand Cove Pier Road, Seaview, 11 Glendale Close, Wootton.
New scaffolding is due up at 12 The Anchorage, Seaview from the 17th of July.
The West Wight area. There is currently scaffolding at Memorial Hall, Avenue Road, Freshwater, Jojo's, School Green Road, Freshwater.
There are currently skips at 8 St Michael's Close, Shalfleet.
This week's In Touch. In Touch, in this week's episode, Assessive Technology, Where Are We Going? The lives of blind and visually impaired people are being transformed by technology. But where are the changes heading? Peter Wight is joined by YouTuber Lucy Edwards as they head to a Microsoft research centre to get her take on life as a digital native. As a blind person, what does she want from the technology that's around the corner? Microsoft's senior technology evangelist, Hector Minto, explains his job title and takes Peter and Lucy through some of the tools of their Seeing All app. He addresses their questions about the current state of technology, which is for and is increasingly designed by the blind and visually impaired. Saqib Sahik, who was a driving force behind Microsoft's approach to technology for the blind and visually impaired, and from Dave Williams, who trains people to use assistive technology. Presenter Peter Wight, producer Kevin Corr.
This is the front page headline from the County Press. More services cut. PFI review to target valued services. Street cleaning, dog poo bin emptying, street lighting and verge cutting could be among the casualties as the Isle of Wight Council looks to save £40 million from the Highways PFI contract. The authority revealed on Wednesday it planned to save £2 million a year during the 20 remaining years through changes to its contract with Island Roads. And it has taken on J. Jayasundara, the man who was instrumental in designing the contract in the first place, to look into cost-saving options. Isle of Wight Council Cabinet Member for Highways, Councillor Ian Ward, said this week it was currently unclear what changes would be made to the contract, although roads refurbishment would be protected as that money had come largely from government grants and could be claimed back by Whitehall. He said the contract with Island Roads was tight. This would leave ancillary functions such as street lighting and cleaning, dog bin emptying and verge cutting as likely targets for cuts equalling around £2 million a year over the remaining life of the contract. The Cabinet will consider the changes on Thursday, as well as the interim appointment of Jasmine Consulting UK, whose director is Mr. Jayasundara. Mr. Jayasundara was brought back to advise on the project earlier this year and was paid £32,690 between January and April. The proposal now is that he's brought back as part of a project costing up to £270,000 long term, £70,000 of which is short-term cost. Labour councillor Julia Baker-Smith criticised the council's decision to bring back Mr. Jayasundara. She said, "The contract can be refinanced to find savings, but it does not take a consultant expert at the cost of £100,000 to the council, especially while the Conservatives are cutting services and taking away benefits from vulnerable islanders." Independent Island leader, Councillor Ian Stevens, said, "We put forward these proposals in the last two budgets, but they were ignored." A spokesman for Island Roads said it would continue to work collaboratively with the council. It said, "By providing a wide range of functions through one organisation and under one contract, Island Roads already delivers a high-quality and cost-effective service. We do understand the council's requirement to find further savings, and we will continue to work collaboratively with council officers to help, while being clear on the effects to service levels associated with any savings suggestions. In fact, we have, over some years, identified areas of potential savings, and these continue to be available for discussion." Council Chief Executive John Metcalfe said, It has to be right we do everything we can to find savings on contracts like these. We're also keen to ensure our successful partnership with Island Roads continues because it's clear to everyone how much our road network has improved.
We've lost everything. A fire that burnt a Gurnard fat home to the ground has left a family of 4 heartbroken and homeless. Christy and Tony Pass said they had lost everything in the devastating blaze that claimed their home, possessions and their life of their dog Tally. Christy, 38, said, "It's taken everything, the whole house has gone. We're absolutely heartbroken." She and Tony, 40, dropped their 2-year-old daughter Bethany at playgroup as usual before heading to work on Monday, leaving Christy's grandmother, who also lived at the house, at home. When they returned after receiving the urgent call, their family home at Cockleton Lane, Gurnard, was destroyed. Christy said, "I saw the smoke when I got to the top of the lane, then saw Tony in the road. He shook his head and I knew we'd lost it all." An onlooker said it was a very nasty fire. The speed at which it got going was really quite scary. Around 40 firefighters and 2 officers attended the scene, with 8 fire engines, 2 water carriers and a command vehicle to try to tackle the blaze that had taken over the building. A spokesperson from the fire service said, "Unfortunately, the house was well alight when we arrived and it was very difficult to stop at that point. It's a terribly sad incident." Christy, who had spent thousands of pounds renovating the house over the past few years, said, "Although I loved the house and my daughter is the 5th generation of my family to live there, it can be rebuilt. What hurts is we've lost every photo we've ever taken, every book we've ever read. My wedding photos, my wedding dress, the clothes my late mum made. My grandmother is 87 and she's lost everything she ever owned. You can't just click a button and buy that on Amazon." A fundraising page has been set up to help the family rebuild their lives. "I can't thank everyone around me enough. You don't understand how kind people can be until something devastating happens." Those interested can visit the page at www.gofundme.com/help sorry, shall I start that again? Those interested can visit the page at www.gofundme.com/help-gurnard-family-start-rebuild.
Heatwave row over uniform. A student at Christ the King College, Newport, was put into isolation for wearing shorts during the heatwave, a parent has told the county press. Students have reported unbearable conditions in mobile classrooms that have no air conditioning or fans. The county press has been told at least one student was put into isolation for a day for coming into school in shorts. The school said it would not be drawn into making comments on individual students or sanctions. A parent who asked not to be named said, "It was midsummer madness. The girls were allowed to take their blazers off, but boys had to wear warm blazers, shirt and tie and long trousers. They were allowed to take blazers off in class with permission, but between lessons and going between campuses, they had to wear full uniform. My child told me in one mobile classroom the heat was unbearable. There was no air conditioning and the fan wasn't working. When I rang to complain, I asked the member of staff I spoke to if they were wearing a jacket and they said no, but they said it wasn't their decision." The school said staff had been operating a common-sense approach to uniform during the recent warm weather. Matthew Quinn, interim executive principal, said, "The college has a strict uniform policy and this is supported by the vast majority of parents. However, when we have extremes in the weather, be that hot or cold, the college will make reasonable adjustment so students are comfortable. This includes the removal of blazers and ties. The college will continue to consider other adjustments should this weather continue over the next few days. This will be communicated to parents. The college will not be drawn into commenting on individual students that could potentially lead to the identification of those youngsters. An Ofsted inspection was recently called at the school, with inspectors visiting last week.
A man in a wheelchair was attacked and robbed in Newport on Tuesday. A 30-year-old man using a wheelchair was travelling home in Petticoat Lane when he was approached by two men close to Birch Gardens at around 11:35 p.m, police said. One of the men punched the victim, leaving him with bruising around his left eye. He was also kicked in the shin. The men stole a set of small silver open-ended spanners, Allen keys, cigarettes and a pair of glasses. The victim described the men as white, aged in their late teens or early 20s. Both men were of medium build and between 5'9" and 5'11" tall. Police said they are reviewing CCTV in the area and have already identified potential witnesses. Witnesses can call DC Scott Careen at Newport Police Station on 101, quoting 441802495571.
Election expenses probe waste of police time. A Shanklin Town councillor found himself under police investigation for a £10 printing bill. The probe was sparked when Shanklin Town councillor Adrian Whittaker flagged up what he saw as discrepancies on fellow councillor David Cable's election expenses form. Councillor Whittaker was concerned about expenses declared for printing costs at Shanklin Conservative Club. But the police investigation, which involved an officer attending Councillor Cable's address and going through paperwork for more than an hour, concluded there was no wrongdoing. During the council's meeting last Thursday, Councillor Cable addressed Councillor Whittaker, who is a new member of the town council, saying he should have come to him directly rather than going to the police. He said it risked damaging the good reputation of Shanklin Town Council and could have been explained very simply if Councillor Whittaker had approached him directly. Councillor Cable had marked £10 on his form for printing costs, but later crossed it out because he found out that items under £50 did not need to be declared. Councillor Whittaker said he was concerned it had been edited after being submitted. Town Mayor Councillor Steve Knight said, "What a waste of police time. This could have been handled much better and more nicely. It is not like it was thousands of pounds in question."
Field closed after green space row. The owners of a Gurnard field have hit out at parish council proposals to declare it a green space by closing their land to the public. Mark and Vicky Spencer bought the field in 2007 and have allowed the community to use it for events, including the village's annual Harvest Festival and show. However, moves by the parish council to declare it a green space have been met with disbelief by the Spencers, who have decided not to let residents use it for the foreseeable future. Parish councillors say they want to protect the area from development, preventing Cowes and Gurnard from merging in the future. Trouble began in March when planning permission by a developer was sought to build homes on a neighbouring field and to build an access road at the top of the Spencers' field. The couple supported the scheme, hoping the road may one day be used to provide access for an eco-home, which they had planned to build on their land in the future. However, Gurnard Parish Council opposed the scheme, with members supporting a proposal for the land to be declared a green space site, making it effectively impossible to build on. The plans to build the new homes and the access road have since been withdrawn. Mark said villagers supported the couple in their fight with the parish council. He said, "The parish council planned to make it a green site. It had been discussed before in the Gurnard village plan. We objected to it. We have always had the view we could remain in the village by building a small eco house." The parish council plan makes that dream extremely difficult. We are not planning on selling the land, but the council proposal has upset us. The access road is at the top of the field. We agree the field needs to be kept green. It almost seems like it is a vendetta against us. The council has since put the proposals on hold and formed a working party to look at how the proposals would protect the valley and landowners' interests. Parish Council Chairman, Councillor Ginny Orey, said the final decision on the proposals rests with the Isle of Wight Council. She said, "I can see where the Spencers are coming from. They are unhappy because their land is part of that proposed designation. We, as a parish council, have a responsibility to ensure the future viability of Gurnard. The priority of the council is not to be horrible to the Spencers. Our priority is to ensure the merging of Cowes and Gurnard does not happen and there is a green space between the two communities."
Arsonists are putting lives at risk. Lives are being put at risk by arsonists starting fires in and around Parkhurst Forest, Island firefighters have warned. In just over a week, 3 fires have been tackled by the fire service in the forest and surrounding areas. Jeff Walls, group manager at Newport Fire Station, said, "There was evidence of fire starting at 2 locations, and we have ruled out any other cause. The proximity of all 3 fires leans towards the culprit being the same person or group. To those who do this, to see how quickly a fire lights up or spreads, you are putting lives and property at risk. Not only are the lives of firefighters in danger when they tackle that particular fire, but the whole island is less safe when resources are stretched." Between 7:45 a.m. and 10 p.m. on Tuesday, fire crews dealt with 5 fires in the open, a car crash, a fire in an electrical substation, a rescue from a vehicle, an oven fire, a fire alarm at a residential care home, and a re-inspection of a property fire from the day before. These responses required 14 fire engines and 3 special appliances in total. "It was a busy day dealing with emergencies and accidents without being called out to a deliberate fire," said Mr. Walls. A spokesperson for the Forestry Commission said they were working with police to try to identify those responsible for the incidents. The current hot, dry weather creates conditions in which fires are easily started and quickly get out of control. Across the country this week, firefighters have been called to tackle a blaze on Winter Hill, Lancashire, which spread across an area of 8 square kilometres, a mountain and forest fire at Mount Carmel, Gwynedd, North Wales, and a widespread fire on Saddleworth Moor near Manchester. Mr. Walls said, "Even embers from innocent bonfires and barbecues or a cigarette dropped to the ground can spark the dry grass and woodlands at this time. Tuesday morning's fire could have been extremely dangerous if it had spread. Our crews worked hard for 4 hours to make sure it was out." A spokesperson from the Forestry Commission added, "Every year, fire destroys thousands of hectares of countryside across England. They're a threat to people, wildlife and forest. We want everybody to be able to enjoy the outdoors, but the current dry conditions have increased the risk of fires, so we are urging people to please act responsibly. Anyone with any information can call the police anonymously on 101.
Dr. John's high-level sleepovers. Dr. John Pike, who works at St Mary's Hospital, Newport, has returned from an extreme sleep-out challenge, which raised thousands of pounds for the homeless. Dr. Pike of Cowes, who now works at the A&E department, applied skills gleaned from his previous role as a remote rope access specialist. The Centre Point Extreme Sleep Out involved sleeping outside in extreme places to raise money for and awareness of the homeless. He slept in 10 of the wonders in the UK, from north to south, dangling high above the ground. His last night was spent hanging from the Spinnaker Tower, Portsmouth. Dr. Pike said, "What an incredible adventure we have had. We've travelled 2,500 miles, met the loveliest people, relied countless times on the kindness of strangers, slept in the most extraordinary places, and dragged 500 kilograms of equipment over miles of cliffs, dales, caves, cities and buildings. We watched seals beneath us from the northern tip of Scotland, were soaked by storms, blown around by gale force winds, and felt the warmth of the evening sun from some of the wildest, most spectacular places in the country, and woke 10 times at dawn with the morning sun streaming in through our portaledges. We've laughed, grumbled, sweated and been soaked and burned. At times we've needed all our warmest clothes and still been freezing. At others we've been parched by 30 centigrade heat. We've been bitten by horseflies, bruised by granite, scratched by thorns, stung, burned, blistered and grazed, and even been attacked by swarms of biting midges. It's been epic. He even dropped in on BBC Breakfast to tell them all about it. The challenge has raised £14,000. To donate, go to justgiving.com/extreme sleepout.
Seagrove Bay gets 2 portable toilets. Seagrove Bay now has 2 portable toilets after a resident highlighted the lack of facilities for summer beachgoers. Dilapidated public conveniences were demolished as part of a land swap deal, but delays have meant replacements have not yet been built. On Monday, Vicky Room, who described herself as a disgruntled local, said the toilets will not be ready for this summer season, which has ruined the summer for many families, as now families won't, or rather can't, enjoy a day at the beach with no toilets. The issue dates back to 2015 when 2 Seaview property owners offered to knock down the ramshackle toilets at Seagrove Bay and build new conveniences nearby, making way for garages and off-street parking spaces for their homes. The Isle of Wight Council agreed to designate the property owners as special purchasers for the toilets, and Nettleston and Seaview Parish Council agreed to maintain them once built. In January 2017, the Parish Council was told there was a legal hitch in the deal, which was delaying the start of the building work. The latest hold-up stems from the need to move a telegraph pole, which has only just been resolved. A spokesperson for the Isle of Wight Council said completion should be in July or August, but the site is only at the groundwork stage. Clerk for Nettlestone and Seaview Parish Council, Mark Pink, said it was a source of frustration. We're managing and refurbishing Puckpool Park toilets and would be happy to maintain Seagrove Bay toilets, as we have previously stated. Yesterday, Thursday, Miss Room sent the county press a photograph of 2 mobile toilets, saying, "Finally, we have some portaloos."
Sky Trail looks set to open by next March. A 3-storey ropes course in Sandown was given the green light by Isle of Wight Council planners this week. The Sandown Sky Trail The Sandown Sky Trail at Sandham Gardens will be a bespoke 13-metre higher course overlooking the seafront. Councillors voted unanimously in favour of the application without any debate. The attraction will also include a smaller child's version of the trail for 2 to 7-year-olds, making the site suitable for families. The plans were put forward by Heritage Attractions Limited, which owns the Needles landmark attraction. It has a 50-year lease with Sandown Town Council to develop Sandham Gardens. Speaking at the meeting, Christian Zanti from Heritage Attractions Limited said, "We believe it's going to be a major draw for islanders and visitors alike. The course will be built between the boating lake and the bowls club, and claims to be the only one on the island, and one of just a handful to be built in Britain. An order will now be placed for the frame with the American owners and manufacturers of the Sky Trail high ropes system. From order, the frame will take 3 months to be built in Michigan and then 1 month to be shipped to the island. The attraction looks set to open in March 2019.
NHS 70th anniversary. 7 decades and 12 hospitals, the Isle of Wight NHS tale. There has been a multitude of hospitals on the island. At the time the NHS was created, there were 12. Since then, the various sites across the island have been consolidated into one hospital with many departments. When the NHS was founded, the island had 2 general hospitals, St Mary's and Ryde, plus the Frank James East Cowes, Shanklin Cottage Hospital and the Arthur Webster Institute, and Scio House, both in Shanklin. Fairlea, the Infectious Diseases Hospital, the Ventnor and Undercliff Hospitals for infectious diseases, Longford Sanatorium, the Ashy Smallpox Hospital, and the largest of all, Whitecroft Hospital. The first hospital on the island was the 13th century leper hospital at Gunville, but by 1650 several apothecaries had premises in Newport. In 1729 the workhouse, now the South Block at St Mary's, was in existence, and later the Pest House Infectious Diseases Unit was built, and this closed in June 2005. St Mary's Newport was first built in the 1850s as the second county hospital, following the opening of Ryde in 1849. Whitecroft, the home for the mentally ill, opened in 1896, and the Sandown and Shanklin Joint Isolation Hospital at Scotchell's Brook existed by 1899. At different times, there were also military and naval hospitals at Albany Barracks, Newport, Golden Hill Fort, Freshwater, and the Royal Naval College at Osborne, plus Parkhurst Prison Hospital. There were 2 hospital management committees, HMCs, one for the Royal National Hospital for Diseases of the Chest at Ventnor, which was a specialist hospital, and the other for the other 11 hospitals. The Longford Sanatorium closed in 1955, the Royal National Hospital at Ventnor closed in 1964, and the Ventnor Isolation Hospital was little used after the Second World War and eventually merged its services with Fairlea. The 2 HMCs continued to manage the remaining island hospitals between them until 1974, when the Area Health Authority took over. Ashy Smallpox Hospital was officially closed in the 1970s, while Fairlea Isolation Hospital was later reopened as the Earl Mountbatten Hospice in 1982, which was initially managed by the NHS. St Mary's became the island's District General Hospital in 1987, and the Royal County Hospital Ryde was closed in 1992. Shanklin Cottage Hospital closed in 1990, Frank James closed in 1991, reopened and then closed forever in 2002, and Whitecroft closed to inpatients in 1990. Let the bells ring out in celebration for the NHS. Bells will ring out across the island tomorrow, that's Saturday, to celebrate the NHS. At least 13 churches will ring a celebratory peal between 10:30am and 5pm. These will include Newport Minster, All Saints Ryde, St Mary's Bryston, All Saints Newchurch, St George's Arreton, St Michael's Swanmore, St Mary and Radegund Whitwell, All Saints Godshill, St Mary's Brading, St Saviour on the Cliff Shanklin, St John the Baptist Knighton, St Andrew Chale and All Saints Freshwater. Representatives from the Isle of Wight NHS will also be present at the churches handing out leaflets to help recruit bell ringers. Organiser and bell ringer Viv Nobbs said, "Our NHS is amazing. The staff are going to be helping us in our drive to recruit 1,400 new bell ringers by handing out leaflets during the peal, so it's great to be working together."
Service still evolving to meet future challenges. 70 years ago, healthcare on the island was an entirely different picture. Before the launch of a free national service in 1948, low-paid working men were provided with the services of a doctor in return for a compulsory 4p a week national insurance contribution. However, this did not include hospital treatment. Thousands died from infectious diseases, including tuberculosis and rheumatic fever. Almost half of all babies delivered at home were stillborn or died within a week of birth. Chief Executive of the IWNHS Trust, Maggie Oldham, said, "Ever since the NHS came into being, it has been evolving and changing. There have been some remarkable milestones over the last 70 years. The number of hospitals and beds on the island has reduced as new treatments and services have been developed. More people are now cared for at home, and more services are provided by a range of organisations, including the voluntary sector. And the service will continue to evolve as we meet the challenges of the future. Staff working to provide health and care services are the backbone of the NHS, many working beyond their roles to ensure that patients receive a great service. Whichever part of the NHS you come into contact with, we all want to receive your feedback so we can make the service better. Only with your help can we improve. Here's wishing the NHS and everyone who works for it a happy 70th birthday."
A week of jubilation. A week full of events has taken place on the island to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the NHS. Folk singer Angelina Grimshaw performed at the Full Circle restaurant at the hospital last Friday, while last Sunday visitors enjoyed a sunny summer fete on the hospital grounds. As well as traditional games and stalls, there was a display of ambulance vehicles and a visit by a Star Wars character. A series of talks and displays also took place at the Riverside Centre on Wednesday to explore the past, present and future of the health service, including a celebratory party and a cake celebrating all 60 different nationalities at the Trust. To celebrate the day itself, Rockabilly band, the Tea and Biscuit Boys, entertained staff and visitors at the Full Circle restaurant. Staff at every NHS service were also encouraged to hold celebratory tea parties. Next Wednesday, a multi-faith service of celebration will be held at All Saints Church Ryde at 6 p.m.
A GP's view. Within 1 month of the NHS's creation, 90% of the population had signed on with a GP. And today, the NHS has more than 59 million patients on its books. Dr. Michelle Legg has been working within the NHS for 16 years. As chair of the Clinical Commissioning Group, she is a key figure in guiding the health services on the island. GP surgeries have now evolved from just 1 or 2 doctors each to 5 or 6 plus a team of nurses and medical staff. With each GP seeing on average 40 people a day, appointments are kept short. However, when people bring multiple problems, this can mean mere minutes to diagnose and help each patient problem. Dr. Legg said, "I think the biggest challenge facing the NHS is encouraging people not to waste services. People don't turn up to appointments, but they are important. No one should ever take the service for granted. The role of the GP has evolved, and now Dr. Legg only sees the more serious cases, with senior nursing staff handling minor symptoms such as colds and sore throats." Like many, Dr. Legg agrees it's the staff which have kept the service running over the past 70 years. She said, "People who work for the NHS often go the extra mile because they care."
All change for NHS. NHS services on the island are constantly evolving. A new system, ambulatory emergency care, has changed the way hospitals function. Instead of patients being admitted, the NHS Trust is now working to get patients treated in and out within a day, saving bed space and improving the quality of patient care. Clinical and quality lead for the ambulance service, Tolly Wood, said, "Now we have multiple patient pathways, and it's not just a case of taking a patient straight to hospital. Patients are assessed, diagnosed, treated, and are able to go home the same day. From podiatry to paramedics, the standard of services has improved due to advancing technologies. Biomedical scientists Courtney Edmonds, Rutendo Chitando and Alberta Anoma have seen how evolving technology has increased patient care. The trio analyse blood and tissue samples, giving diagnosis and advising doctors on the correct course of antibiotics. Rutendo, who worked in Zimbabwe for several years, said, "Here you can see how things can be done quicker because of the machines we have." Courtney added, "Even now you can see in the method used, it's all done with machines, whereas before it would have had to been done manually." Operational manager for pharmacy, Rachel Hartup, has worked within the NHS for almost 30 years. Part of the reason, she said, is due to the job satisfaction. We know we're here for the patients. Because of the changes in operations and techniques, people are staying for a lot less time, going home quicker and getting better faster. The pharmacy team has also started a new service where they send a copy of the patient's discharge medicines list to their preferred community pharmacy when they go home. This ensures the community pharmacy is aware of any changes to the medicines and means they can follow up and support the patient if needed once they go home. Pharmacy may also offer to phone the patient once they've gone home just to check they're getting on okay. The podiatry team, one of the busiest teams at the hospital, handles more than 48,000 appointments a year. Podiatrist Louise Potter said, "We do so much more than cutting toenails, but people don't realise how our services have evolved." All those working at the NHS, whether it be for 30 years or 2, are agreed on one thing. Stuart Brown, acute clinical team leader for physiotherapy, said, "It's the staff which make the services. Everyone cares, and it shows, because we were rated good for caring, and we do care about everyone that comes through the door."
This is Den saying goodbye.
And this is Sue saying goodbye.
Hello, this is Sonara.
And this is Madeleine.
And we're continuing with the County Press readings for Friday, July 6th. And we're on to the letters. Now, I've got a slightly complicated one here because we've got part of a copy of an old issue of Holiday Guide. But the letter says Britain in downward spiral. It's from Sam Turner of Sandown. Rummaging through my loft recently, I came across some old copies of the Isle of Wight official holiday guide produced by the Isle of Wight Tourist Board. A 1978 copy I found showed what a rich island we had back then, with an abundance of hospitals. I've counted them, 7. Fairley Hospital in Newport, Frank James Hospital in East Cowes, Royal Isle of Wight County Hospital in Ryde, Casualty Department, Shanklin Hospital in Luncoln Road, Arthur Webster Hospital in Shanklin, St Mary's Hospital in Newport, Casualty Department, and Whitecroft Hospital in Newport. So, with an abundance of hospitals, police stations in each of Cowes, Newport, Yarmouth, Ryde, Shanklin, Sandown and Ventnor. Public libraries, newspapers and even several authorities. Local authorities were Isle of Wight County Council, Medina Borough Council and South Wight Borough Council. We even had a fully fledged tourist board. We now have Visit IW and its website, but I doubt if it could ever hold a candle to the old board. Also back then, our high streets were full of well-known companies, such as Woolworths, etc., not forgetting local butchers and traders, plus banks everywhere you looked. Sadly, since the 1970s, Britain and the island has been diving into oblivion, and this holiday guide spells it out in cold black and white. Go back even further to remember our whole island rail service. You could get to Sandown, where I live, or Brading to Newport in minutes, instead of an hour or an hour and a half by bus now. What our country has lost in time will never come back, and I fear the downwards journey will continue.
And next we have Letter of the Week, A Greener Plan, and this is from Stuart Robinson in Ryde. I was delighted conservation received such prominence in the NPI report, which dismissed Ryde School's appeal against the Isle of Wight Council for rejecting its first planning application. In the light of this decision, Ryde School should now move on from this controversial boarding house project and embark on a project that is truly educationally meaningful. Instead of erecting an ugly building in a beautiful conservation area, thereby destroying a verdant, wildlife-rich environment, why not plant trees, shrubs and indigenous plants where pupils can engage with nature and learn to appreciate it? There is a growing consensus connecting children with nature should be a fundamental part of their education for their cognitive development, as well as their psychological and physical health. Indeed, in many places across the planet, schools are expanding their facilities to include parks, woodlands and green spaces. The school will have given its pupils a great life-enhancing gift, and those children who have immersed themselves in nature will grow up to be the adults who protect it. I sincerely hope Ryde School will now rethink. It would be applauded for such a decision.
From Hilary Curtis in Southampton, stop this seasonal hazard to health. I have just visited my friend who lives in Ryde, and I'm sending this letter before I leave the island. Unfortunately, my friend has a bronchial condition, and she's not in good health at the moment. That doesn't surprise me, because I have just experienced the stench of a bonfire that has permeated throughout her house. I was left choking because of the toxic smoke, so no wonder my friend is ill. You all live on a fantastic island, and you're trying to pretend that it is an eco-island, but there's no way it ever can be when you're continually polluting it with bonfires. My friend tells me as soon as spring comes, the gardeners light up their couch heaps in their gardens and allotments and leave them smouldering for days. There are so many reasons why you should stop burning your rubbish. First, pushing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere heats up the planet and doesn't do the island any good. Second, garden waste taken to the tip is turned into compost for resale, so the council is being deprived of revenue. Third, bonfires cause a toxic stench across the area, and this makes people nauseous. 4, it can cause bronchial problems for those who have the misfortune to inhale it, and exacerbates the problem for those who already have bronchial problems. 5, it penetrates the house and makes everything smell, as I've just discovered. 6, it permeates washing on the line and makes the clothes reek. 7, in the summer heat, it's pleasant to have the windows open, until someone lights up a stinking bonfire. 8, the person lighting the bonfire needs to be a little more aware of the impact on others and the fact that he or she is supposed to be living on an eco-island. If you are unable to take rubbish to the tip, put it out for collection if it falls into the appropriate categories, or call the council for advice. But please don't keep smoking my friend out.
Shocked to read of more savage cuts to our island services. And this is from John Baldry in Ventnor. The news on your front page of the County Press on the 29th of June was shocking. It stated more cuts had been imposed on some of the most vulnerable people in society. This is on top of years of existing cuts to our budget, affecting public WCs, libraries, parks, the Botanic Garden in Ventnor, helping the community, etc. Are the voters on the island aware our MP, Bob Seeley, voted with the government in February this year in continuing with even more devastating cutbacks to council budgets? This is certainly not what I voted for, and I suspect not what most people voted for. We must all remember this when it is time for our next election.
From Vera Morris of Cowes, Parish Council only acting on behalf of our residents. Indeed, Gurnard is a wonderful village, and I should like to remind Joan Hill, County Press letters from the 29th of June. Gurnard Parish Council, along with other local parish councils, is made up of voluntary local residents who work tirelessly on behalf of and for local people. Regarding the field in question, it was probably felt, not knowing the owner's plans for the field in future, that by proposing it be a green site, it would make it more difficult to build on in future, as has happened to the fields adjacent to and behind Place Road. It is a shame the young owners have taken umbrage to the idea.
People spoke. From Charlotte Hodge Thomas in Bembridge. After 18 months of animosity within the parish council, the community has at last been able to express its view on the sale of a parish asset, 5 to 7 High Street, home to Captain Stan's Fish Shop and Conquer Group. The parish poll, a first for the island, voted to not sell the building by almost 3 to 1. 602 residents against and 231 in favour. The 5-hour poll took place on the hottest day of the year, during the England World Cup match. However, the majority group on the council stated before and during the heavy campaigning they would not necessarily abide by the result if it was to retain the building, stating the vote was non-binding and they are the democratically elected representatives. I find this most arrogant and a deep betrayal of trust, as many of those councillors stood on the platform of Open Bembridge at last year's election, standing for openness and transparency in finances, and more specifically to protect 5 to 7 High Street. These councillors were voted in on a promise, which they then rescinded as soon as elected. There is nothing more democratic than asking the people for their view, and parishioners have spoken very clearly in Bembridge.
And Clive Cooter of Ryde says we need experts. Re the controversy of paying experts to inject innovation into the running of the Isle of Wight Council. Expertise has to be paid for, and if the default position of the Isle of Wight Council is incompetence, and had been for years, what other choice is there?
Did MP preach to impressionable youngsters? From Ian Mackay, Totland Bay. I have written twice to the island's Member of Parliament asking him to confirm whether or not, in an address to one of the island's schools, he has stated he believed wind turbines to be things of beauty, as claimed by 3 of the pupils. He has refused to reply to my requests. Bob Seeley is entitled, as we all are, to our own opinions. However, given that an MP's opinion can often carry more weight than other people's, and that wind turbines have been an especially contentious issue here on the island, I find his silence offensive. I am also offended by the fact he could have been preaching on this issue to 10 and 11-year-olds, despite the fact that he has no experience in the field of renewable energy. But this is not the first time that our MP has refused to answer direct questions which may land him in hot water. He is, after all, an ex-spin doctor, and so we should be prepared to expect him to manipulate the media and dodge issues until the next election. How terribly disappointing for all those voters who put their cross next to his name in good faith in 2017.
Where is Radio 4 coming from? Says Margaret Beckwith of Lake. Can any CP reader help me with the problem? For 2 years I've been plagued by BBC Radio 4 coming on independently, i.e. not from either of my 2 radios. I've tried removing them both to the garden shed, but it still comes on intermittently from 10:30 p.m. at intervals throughout the night. It just seems to be in the air. Can anyone suggest an explanation?
Moving on to looking back. 100 years ago, on July the 6th, 1918, 2 Bembridge residents had a narrow escape out on the water. Ernest Ockemore and his friend were leaving the harbour in a motor launch when a seaplane collided with them. They were both thrown into the water and gained nasty cuts, but avoided serious injury. And Shanklin's valuable asset, the Pier Pavilion, was destroyed in a large fire. The building, which was the property of the Shanklin Extension Pier Company Limited, was the headquarters of a number of island entertainers for many years. The fire was first seen by a gentleman on the esplanade who gave the alarm, and the fire service arrived quickly, but the fire had obtained a good hold of the building.
And 75 years ago, July the 3rd, 1943, Wight and Bembridge broke the island record for amount of money raised in the Wings for Victory Week. No national effort since the outbreak of the war evoked or maintained such a high pitch of enthusiasm, and the towns raised £144,502 for the war effort. They had only targeted 75,000, but the communities worked tirelessly on fetes, town events, and selling war savings certificates. And the Trades Council held a Labour Day school. Held in Northwood Park, Mr. Humphreys, head of the organisation, gave 2 lectures on the Beveridge Report on social welfare. He urged everyone to push the government to accept the plan. 20 island organisations were represented.
And 50 years ago, on June the 29th, 1968, Mr. J.H. Wight, principal of Jack's Beauty Shop, Ryde, was appointed as president of Intercoiffeur, an influential organisation in the hairdressing industry. It was the first time the appointment was made to a provincial member. Mr. Wight was awarded the role by the past president, Frederick French of London. And a revolutionary experiment that was thought could change the prison service took place at Albany Prison. Cell doors were to be relocked by remote control to help with dignity in regards to night sanitation.
And 25 years ago, July 2nd, 1993, the island's ambulance control staff were told to accept pay cuts of up to £5,000 a year or be sacked. The shock ultimatum came from the Isle of Wight Community Healthcare Trust to the 10 workers in a bid to make savings in the unit of £65,000. One ambulance worker said all community healthcare staff had been warned they faced instant dismissal if they talked to the press. And tourist industry leaders hit back at a travel writer who criticised the Isle of Wight. He described Blackgang Chine as a place of unmitigated awfulness, and Sandown as a resort for elderly women with crimpline dresses. The article in the Daily Telegraph was described as giving a yuppie and snobby view of the island.
And 10 years ago, on July the 4th, 2008, A horrified island couple's dream Italian holiday turned into a nightmare when they found themselves close to a late-night fatal shooting incident. Bob and Carol Castle were caught up in one of Italy's biggest news stories on their 2-week holiday in Tuscany. The couple woke to the sound of the nearby villa swarming with police, news reporters and photographers. An intruder had broken into the house, disturbed the family and had been shot. And a teenage girl remained in hospital a week after she was knocked off her scooter by a tractor driver who did not stop. Her father said, "I'm disgusted the driver did not stop to help her. That's the worst thing about it all. I do feel bitter."
And moving on to Wight memories, Fight Goes On to Keep Our Paths Open is the title. The Isle of Wight Ramblers are celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. Launched in March 1968, the first meeting of the new group was held in May that year. The Southampton Ramblers group was invited over to the island for a walk along the Worsley Trail. In 1973, the group's first newsletter was published, which highlighted the many obstructions on island footpaths and the multiple confrontations that ramblers had with unwelcoming farmers. In October of that year, there was a joint visit with French ramblers to Trouville. During the 1970s, the group enjoyed many trips to France. By 1981, the Isle of Wight Ramblers were up to 200 members, and at this time were fighting hard to keep footpaths across the island open. At the time, urban areas were growing, and 500 footpaths were disappearing from the maps of England and Wales each year. A large part of the group's efforts at the time was campaigning against legal extinguishment of footpaths. In 1982, the Isle of Wight Council made a new bridleway along the former Langbridge to Horringford railway line, and a footbridge was needed to link an existing footpath to it. It was volunteers from the Isle of Wight Ramblers who made this. When the Isle of Wight coastal path was created using existing rights of way, there was dissatisfaction because parts of the route were a long way from the coast. The main issue was the lack of access at Osborne House, where the path totally avoided the coast to go around the estate.
In October 1986, 130 people, including 5 councillors, made a token walk from Cowes Esplanade to Old Castle Point to highlight the issue. This was repeated in September 1997. Around that time, the Isle of Wight Ramblers also took to the courts to open up footpath V107, which leads from the pits in Bonchurch up to Leeson Road. The dramatic stepped path was once closed by the Highways Department, which said it was dangerous and would require a large amount of funding. In the Magistrates' Court, the Isle of Wight Ramblers argued the path could be repaired in a cost-effective way, and they won the case. In 2000, the Isle of Wight became the only place in the country to meet Target 2000, a national initiative to see all paths on the rights of way network open, usable and on the map by year 2000. There was a week of walks to celebrate. In 2001, many rural footpaths were closed for months because of the devastating outbreak of foot and mouth disease. The Isle of Wight Council Rights of Way Department was stretched to its limit, and volunteers from Isle of Wight Ramblers assisted by manning council phones for about a month. In 2010, the Isle of Wight Ramblers introduced an ingenious scheme: Donate a Gate. Gates on footpaths are expensive, but they allow people who cannot climb over stiles, such as less able walkers and those with pushchairs, dogs or small children, to use the paths. Since the scheme was set up, 186 gates have been donated, amounting to more than £80,000. The Ramblers are hoping to reach 200 gates during their 50th anniversary year.
And moving on yet again to Behind the News, and this time it's the changing face of Isle of Wight farming. The Isle of Wight branch of the National Farmers Union, the NFU, is marking its centenary this year. To celebrate, there will be displays of old farming photos at the Royal Isle of Wight County Show on Sunday, the Isle of Wight Ploughing Match, and at the Isle of Wight NFU's AGM. Nationally, the NFU was formed in 1908, and President Colin Campbell established the NFU's credibility when farming was going through its longest depression as imports of cheap grain and frozen meat flooded in from abroad. British farmers played a crucial role during the First World War as German U-boats cut off trade routes. The government turned to British farmers to feed the country. More than 170,000 farmers fought in the trenches, and 500,000 farm horses were requisitioned by the War Office. Faced by a lack of labour, farms recruited 98,000 women from the Women's Land Army, while a further 66,000 soldiers returned from the front line for harvest. By the end of the war, an extra 915,000 tonnes of oats, 1.7 million tonnes of potatoes, and 830,000 tonnes of wheat were grown, and thanks to British farmers, the country avoided being starved into submission. The Isle of Wight branch of the National Farmers Union was established at a meeting at Unity Hall, Newport, on March 23, 1918. A county press report from June 15, 1918, showed the thriving branch had several hundred members, with representatives from many island farming families. It was a crowded meeting, with discussion on farmers' worries about getting the crops in with fewer men, plus wages for agricultural workers. The role of Island Branch chairman has been filled by 87 people during the past century, with multiple representations of well-known island farming families, including 4 Atrills, 3 Cowleys, 3 Browns, and 2 Fluxes. Rose Atrill was the first woman to hold the seat in 1996, while Caroline Knox held the post for 6 years, from 2011 to 2017. The Island Branch has been active throughout the last century, campaigning on issues including housing, milk quotas, the lack of an island abattoir, the impact of foot and mouth disease, and more recently, Brexit. One county press report from April 11th, 1965, tells of the Island Branch's protest against the farmers' price review. It stated, island farmers demonstrated dismay, disquiet, and disgust at the provisions of the price review by appearing in a tractor parade through Newport on Saturday. NFU County Secretary, Mr. G.D. Herbert, said the intention was to capture the interest of the public rather than to antagonise them. So the NFU stuck to the police recommendation of no more than 50 tractors. He believed they could have had 3 times as many.
There were around 30 farmers on foot carrying banners with messages such as, "When we go broke, you will go hungry," and "The biggest thing on our farm is our overdraft." The island's NFU branch has seen the rise and fall of the livestock market, originally held in St James's Square, Newport. In 1928, it moved to a purpose-built facility in Church Lytton, where it became a Tuesday institution for island farmers until its closure in 1984. After the livestock market shut, the annual Gilton Market was held at Brickfields Horse Country, and following its closure in 2013 at Lake Farm, Rookley, where it remains today. Island levels of farming have changed extensively in the past century. As a 1973 NFU report on the county structure plan reveals, this stated there were around 1,800 farm workers on the island, and the total dairy herd was 10,900, while there were 1,500 animals kept for beef. There were 17,000 pigs, but sheep were not a significant part of the island's economics, with only 7,450 recorded. Poultry numbers were 70,000, and there were 580 full-time agricultural holdings on the island, with 262 registered dairy producers. These figures differ greatly now, but perhaps the most startling is the number of registered dairy producers, which has fallen from 262 in 1973 to under 10 today. In the recent Farming Memories project, former Isle of Wight NFU chairman and Island High Sheriff John Attrell of Dean Farm, Whitwell, said in the old days some farmers had 6 cows and sold their milk around the village. But now dairy producers have hundreds of cows. Many farmers saw the 1984 introduction of milk quotas as a catalyst for change. Christine Broom of Eastview Farm, Roud, recalled, "The government said you could only produce so much milk on certain size farms, and if you had 10 cows more than your quota, you had to get rid of them because they wouldn't pay you for the extra milk. So you had to try and find something else to do. And that's why I bought my first sheep. Pig numbers have fallen in recent decades, but sheep and horticultural have increased, and island-produced food and drink is still very much alive here." Matt Legg, Isle of Wight NFU branch chairman, concluded, "With our industry set to see unprecedented change, it is good to reflect and appreciate what we can do when we work together."
And now, my view, and the first article written by Jonathan Young, Drive On, for the many, not the few. For sale, secluded home in enviable cul-de-sac position only minutes from the coast, a virtually traffic-free wildlife haven. So could read the estate agent's blurb for a good many properties on Knighton Undercliff, a no-through route since those dramatic days in February 2014 which saw the army evacuating cut-off families. Now, after much toing and froing, a plan is finally taking shape for reopening the road without breaking the bank, but it's dividing island opinion. There are advantages to living in a cul-de-sac, of course, and you'll balance them against how important it is for you to get to the other side of the landslip. The Knighton end gets the fluffy end of that lollipop, because St. Lawrence is as near to Ventnor and its services as it ever was. It's also true that homes and businesses directly affected by subsidence shouldn't have an unlimited call on public resources. That's what insurance is for. The response to those people's needs in the immediate aftermath was too slow and too influenced by hidebound officers, but the debate has now rightly moved on to the longer-term consequences of the road closure. Undercliff Drive is or was part of the island's strategic road network, and particularly in the tourism context, and its closure isolates communities and businesses, particularly at the western end, in a way which suits the few but not the many. It's only now, 4 years on, that a clear picture of the closure's economic impact is emerging. A Bournemouth University study estimates the annual cost at almost £1.5 million, while the innovative scheme for bridging the landslip could, if the Isle of Wight Council has got its sums right, a big if of course, be completed for less than £1.5 million as a one-off cost. That sounds like a no-brainer. The maths make it very difficult, for example, to sustain the argument promoted in a letter to the county press by Paul Simmons recently. This is some sort of vanity project on Councillor Dave Stewart's part, and an island-wide referendum is needed to rein in his ego. Yes, Councillor Stewart, as well as being council leader, is also the ward member for Chale, Knighton and Whitwell, and many local people and businesses are on his back to get Undercliff Drive sorted. It would have been remiss of him not to take notice. But a referendum, every time £1 million or so has to be spent in one corner of the island or another? Seriously? Strategic assets are strategic assets, be they on the Undercliff, or, dare one mention it, scratching and scraping their way across the River Medina in cows. I do have one big reservation. I don't generally favour cocooning the island in a 1960s bubble wrap. Sorry, that was 1950s bubble wrap, my eyesight, because it smacks of generational indulgence. But the Undercliff wasn't designed for 21st century traffic, or late 20th century traffic either, for that matter. Its twists and turns, its leafy overhangs are what makes it. So when Councillor Stewart says the planned geofoam block bridge could take any vehicle of any weight, let's pause and ask whether that's really a good idea. In the 1950s, there wasn't room for mainland coaches on the ferries. Long-defunct island firms picked up their passengers and chugged round the island to places like the Undercliff in 35-seaters. Heritage vehicles, you'd call them nowadays. The wildlife didn't seem to mind. Traffic didn't get jammed up on the bends. An afternoon tea stop was the simple pleasure to look forward to. So let's reclassify the Whitwell route as the A road, put a width or weight restriction on the reopened Undercliff, and let locals and visitors alike enjoy it for what it is. It's called Undercliff Drive for a reason.
This beautiful weekend had it all. And this is by Alan Marriott. Well, it's all over for another year, and by common consensus this year was one of the best Isle of Wight festivals yet. It was certainly one of the most popular, being a sellout and feeling fuller than it has in recent years. Wonderful weather, football fever and some tremendous tunes were a recipe for success, and already the early bird tickets for 2019 have gone, as punters prove they want more of the same. My colleague Malcolm Mime, in another county press column, set out his superannuated suggestions of who to see from a middle-aged male perspective. I honestly couldn't say I saw a poor act, although Van Morrison and Depeche Mode were not exactly festival friendly. They knew their craft, and Van the man showed just why he is revered by music fans the world over. But would it really have hurt him to have cracked a smile and a joke with the thousands basking in the Sunday sunshine? Liam Gallagher showed he really got the gig, pleasing the Man City fans in the audience, myself included, by coming on to a chant of "Champions," then launching into a couple of solid Oasis covers before playing The Peacemaker when a bit of argy-bargy broke out in the front stalls. There were even tales of the Mancunian bad boy being quite the charmer, when stopping for a lengthy chat and signing session with fans backstage. But my Rolling Back the Years award went to the Skids, the Scottish new wave band from the early 80s, which led singer Richard Jobson, which whose lead singer, Richard Jobson, had lost none of his energy and passion during their Big Top set. He got the audience involved in a tale about when he first appeared on Top of the Pops, and the host was none other than the Radio 1 DJ, who can never be named, except Jobson did, and whipped up a frenzied audience chant that is too strong to be repeated here. It was also nice to see John Giddings trying to address the gender gap with some quality female acts, such as Sheryl Crow, although some of my group of friends thought they were going to see Cheryl Cole, the youthful Sigrid, and the magnificent Karen Wheeler fronting Soul to Soul, a packed-out gig in the Big Top I had to hear rather than see. We've all moaned about lineups, weather, prices, etc. in the past, but this year somehow it was all too beautiful.
And we're moving on to what's on. There's a choir's concert. The Gurnard Ladies Choir will perform their summer music concert with a 1960s slant next Friday, July 13th at 7 p.m. at All Saints Church, Gurnard. There will be a retiring collection for church and choir funds.
And an adoption week, a hit at Centre. One of the most important weeks of the year takes place at the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary from Monday. It's adoption week. Donkeys can be adopted for £20 a year, and supporters can then follow their donkey through the next 12 months. All supporters get a certificate and photo of their donkey, newsletters, and information about the work of the sanctuary. Each day a different group of donkeys will be available for adoption. Look out for videos on the website and Facebook page introducing the donkeys in each group, who will appear in the following order. On July the 9th, Main Girls Herd. July the 10th, Main Boys Herd. July the 11th, Old and Proud Group. July the 12th, Diet Donkeys. July the 13th, Special Care Donkeys. July the 14th, Outreach and Community Donkeys. And on July the 15th, Miniature Donkeys. Adoptions are the single most important fundraising activity for the sanctuary, which admits it is having a tough year following the prolonged winter. Business manager Carol Foote said, "To help promote Adoption Week, Red Funnel is kindly providing a travel discount voucher for everybody who adopts a donkey during Adoption Week. This is a great opportunity for people to adopt a donkey or renew an adoption. Adoptions can be made in person at the sanctuary, over the phone, online, or by using the QR codes for donkey adoptions, both at the site and in the current newsletter. The donkeys will be out and about during Adoption Week, so you can also adopt them when you spot them at Shipwreck Isle, the Pirate Festival at Apley Beach on Sunday, the Garlic Farm on July the 12th, or at Bryston Horticultural Show on July the 14th. The week culminates in Mini Donkey Day on July the 15th, which gives people the opportunity to bring their Mini to meet the Minis at the sanctuary. Members of the Island Mini Club will be popping in and everybody is welcome."
And the Island Savoyards are performing Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat at Shanklin Theatre on July the 28th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 8 o'clock in the evening, and also on July the 29th at the same times. Tickets are £16 for adults and £12 for children.
And Fairweather Festival has announced new acts to join the lineup following the cancellation of Shaggy. Leading the names is British rapper Professor Green, who headlined the event last year, with new music on the way, including a number of collaborations with his friend and Friday night headliner, Example. A festival spokesperson said, Professor Green loved the crowd at Fairweather Festival last year and was really keen at the idea of coming back with new music and a new show. Also joining the lineup is Dappy, best known as one third of Mobo award-winning trio N Dubs. Festival organisers have also announced a new stage, The Den. With a burst of flowing colour surrounded in woodland and jumping with inflatables and atmosphere, The Den is the party with a mixture of 5 genres of the world's biggest and best electronic music. Joining Nathan Daw at the top of The Den's lineup are garage heroes Artful Dodger. Artful Dodger boasts 2 decades of hits, including Moving Too Fast, Please Don't Turn Me On, and the chart-topping collaboration with Craig David, Rewind. Representing the drum and bass genre will be Kings of the Rollers, a supergroup consisting of Serum, Blade Runner, Voltage, and MC Injure. Also joining the Den lineup will be house music pioneers DJ SKT, Endor, Shapes, Sean Dean, DJ CJ, Max T-Rax, and Battle of the Decks winner Remy J. This latest announcement follows the news Shaggy will no longer be appearing at the event due to taking a break from performing after his extensive tour with Sting. Fairweather Festival takes place at Sandown Airport on Friday, August the 31st and Saturday, September the 1st, raising money and awareness for the Isle of Wight Youth Trust. The full lineup and tickets can be found at www.fairweatherfestival, all one word, .co.uk. And that's all we have time for today. So it's goodbye from Madeline.
And goodbye from Sonara.
This is the BBC.
This is In Touch, the magazine programme for people like me who are blind or partially sighted. I'm Peter Wight. Thanks for downloading this week's edition. Anyone who listens regularly to this programme will know that digital technology is having a vast impact on many blind and partially sighted people's lives. It's helping us to read, to get around, to identify objects, doing the job of sight, in other words. We frequently feature individual developments, but today is more about direction of travel. Where are we going with this, and what impact is it going to have on the lives of all of us in the future? So, we're heading to the headquarters of one of the biggest, although by no means the only, players in this field. Microsoft is an international name, and amongst their research and development, a good deal of effort is going into working up kit aimed at us. And we're going to a research centre in Reading. Well, I'm taking with me Lucy Edwards, because Lucy is a representative of the generation who's going to be using this stuff for the next 60 or 70 years. Hi Lucy.
Hi Peter, lovely to see you
Good
again.
to see you too. So have you got some good questions? So Lucy, first of all, how much do you use this kind of technology and what do you use it for?
Well Pete, I'm a freelance journalist and I'm primarily on YouTube quite a lot. I'm a creator on there, so I use the technology an awful lot for my work.
And you were particularly famous for your makeup tutorials, weren't they? Because they went viral.
Yes, Blind Girl Does Her Own Makeup was really popular because I don't think people expected a blind girl to be on a video platform applying her makeup because it's such a sighted thing to do, I think. So, smashing stereotypes there.
And in the longer term, what do you want to get from this trip?
I think the future of technology ahead of me as a blind user is very daunting, and I think because I have to use this technology for the rest of my life, what does it hold? Where am I going to be with it in the next 10, 15 years?
Hey there, how are you? Hi Lucy. You have time to grab a cup of tea?
Well, we're in the office of Hector Minto, who rejoices in the title of Senior Technology Evangelist for Microsoft. What does it mean?
One of the things about accessibility and assistive technology is people don't know they care about it until they know about it. But when they know about it, they really care about it. You do need to kind of break the door down a bit to get people to care about accessibility. And so it needs somebody who can really go out and evangelise about it.
Where does developing this kind of equipment sit in your portfolio? And if I can put it more crudely, what sort of proportion of your budget does it take up?
The easy way to describe this is that the design around disability in general at Microsoft is a core value in all of the design teams. And that's not always been the case. We have gone through a long history with accessibility and with technology in general, where the accessibility for people with disabilities has been an obligation put on companies to make product accessible. We're now at the stage with Microsoft where we see it as an opportunity to design in at the start. So it doesn't have a set budget as such. It's just more of a kind of core cultural value.
But you say that you are now taking it seriously, but this hadn't always been the case. Are you, to some extent, in fact, playing catch-up with the companies who took it seriously from the start?
I think what we recognise is that a burgeoning third-party assistive technology world grew up around the technology, and Microsoft allowed that to happen. What we can definitely say has happened in the last couple of years is a reinvestment from Microsoft and the understanding that as technology becomes more global, as the cost that people are willing to pay for specialist solutions around the world, as that whole relationship changes, there's become a requirement on us to invest again on making the core built-in solutions even better. I think it's fair to say that we allowed other people to take the lead on this in the past. We now want to lead the market on assistive technology and actually encourage more people to create even more amazing tools.
Right.
So updates scare me as a visually impaired user of technology. Even as a 22-year-old, they scare me. I'm on JAWS 16. You're quite vocal about working with Freedom Scientific and developing Microsoft Edge with that. But why do Freedom Scientific have to script for Edge? Why can't it be integral to JAWS?
And this is, just to make it clear, this is just a way of accessing the internet, browsing.
Yep.
One of the challenges for say JAWS, for VFO, and for all assistive technology manufacturers now is that the world has become cloud-based. The rate of change of technology is increasing. So as we do that, we need to support the third-party AT world to keep up. The voice of the consumer or the voice of the user is through our disability answer desk. When people report in through our disability answer desk, we have a much earlier warning system for problems that are appearing. And we now have great relationships with global partners on assistive technology to help them iron out the issues that are arising. And what we need to do is just make sure that the compatibility moving forward is increasingly better.
Seeing AI, artificial intelligence, this is a kind of almost a catch-all system. Is that basically the idea? I think it's been described to me as the kind of Swiss Army knife of accessibility.
I think that's a great description. It is a set of channels, a set of tools that can be used to narrate the world around you. So, for example, on the table here I have 2 cans. How does somebody who's blind know where the barcode is on an object to identify it? Well, that's difficult, right?
Yes, but you have to read it. You have to know where it is.
You have to know where it is.
Yeah.
So what actually happens if we can just listen to this as I go around? I'll stop talking. But as I twist the can in front of the camera, I hear some beeps.
Diet Coke can 330 millilitres.
And I'll do it on the second can, but I'll avoid the barcode at first.
Processing. Pepsi Diet.
Yeah, so the beeps are about helping you locate it.
Yes, so I'm a vegan and I'm also blind, so it's kind of hard for me to read labels and maybe trust people to read the label out properly to me, maybe if it hasn't got milk in or they haven't noticed. Yeah. So I think it's really beneficial. I was jumping up and down last night doing it.
And when you read the barcode, there is a more information button, which will give you more information. Now, what we want to do in the longer term is obviously work with the food manufacturers, work with maybe the local shops, the local businesses, to put their barcode libraries up into the directory so you can get even more information than is currently available.
One of the things we haven't talked about yet is the whole business of blind people navigating, getting the information they need to get around. There have been various attempts to do this over the years. A lot of people have tried things out, but actually in the real world most people are still getting out around with either a guide dog or a white cane. Hector, Soundscape is Microsoft's attempt to do this. So what's different about it?
Yeah, so this is using 3D audio and cloud-sourced maps and beacons in your community to give you extra information in 3D audio through a headset. It comes from your phone, so you connect to your telephone.
And Lucy, you've been quite impressed.
I really have. I think it's the first app that I feel safe to use. Because of the 3D audio, I'm hearing the beacon location on my right-hand side, and that's indicating that I'm hearing that a building is to the right of me, and it's really intuitive.
And again, you would hear something behind you, to hear the description of something behind you if that's where it was, because of the 3D.
Yes, I would, and so crossings, it tells me I'm coming up to them, and so it's really useful when navigating with a guide dog.
I mean, one of the things that blind people, me included, often say about all this stuff that you put in your ear is it's all very well giving you all this information, but you're actually taking information away as well, the information that we get from our ears. That's going to need quite some change of attitude, isn't it, really? And you're going to have to learn how to do that.
It's really scary for me as a blind user to put headphones in when it's my only mode and meaning my extra sense that I need out there in the wide world, and it is a bit scary, but I think I'm going to have to get used to it.
So let's give it a go. Let's see you in action, Lucy. You're going to actually try this out for us.
Yeah, okay.
So using the voiceover on your phone here, you should be able to find the Set a Beacon button.
Okay.
Starbucks 85 metres.
Okay, and now you need to orient yourself, move yourself around until you hear the ping.
Around you.
There.
And then move south in that direction.
Oh my gosh, this is so weird. Olga, come on.
Microsoft building.
Let's go. Yeah, it's over there. It's telling me now that I'm approaching an intersection. The tapping is actually slightly distracting. I'm like, oh, where am I? Oh my god, I need to get used to this. Microsoft Building 3 is like behind me. Yeah, I could definitely get used to it. I think it's really overwhelming to start off with because you're trying to navigate your dog and yourself and then sort of hear where all the buildings are in your head. You very much feel at one with the app.
Yep, when you press that and select that, it will give you the objects that are in front of you.
Starbucks 85 metres.
That's correct.
Microsoft Building.
Yep.
I'm pointing, guys,
Yeah.
to all the buildings around me. Oh my gosh, this is so cool.
But it's probably a little bit like getting your sight back, isn't it?
It is a bit.
You're suddenly being overwhelmed with information.
With all this information, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And sometimes I'm like, oh, do I want that all at once? I don't know. I'm going to have to get used to it.
Well, one of the things that we've touched on is quite often the major breakthroughs in this area have been by visually impaired people because we know the kinds of problems we're trying to solve. Saqib Sheikh is a senior software engineer with Microsoft, and he's joining me on a line from outside of the office. Saqib, one of the things that people often say is, something they couldn't do is what inspired them to try to change things. I wonder what are the things that, maybe that you couldn't do, the frustrations that you found perhaps early on.
I know my own problems better than anyone, whether that is that those inaccessible websites we all encounter, being able to read things out in the world, or those social situations like, weddings when you're standing in a corner trying to mingle. And I could go on. There are so many of these little challenges. And over time, I realized that technology has the power to change people's lives. As I see the new generation of technology like AI, I think, how can we apply some of that to try and somehow smoothen out some of the rough edges of life? Like somebody who's using the handwriting recognition to read a letter that was sent to her when she still was able to see.
How did the project start? How did you get the thing going?
So I've been at Microsoft a number of years working on various mainstream projects. But then we had this hackathon, which is a whole week where we were allowed to work on anything that interested you. I took one of my side projects at the time to look at how AI can be used to help a blind person. And that's how Seeing AI came about. The next year at the hackathon, I found some colleagues in Silicon Valley who were able to pitch in and make it even better. And it took off from there until it is the product that it is today.
So with Seeing AI as a specific example, what do you see as the potential?
When I look to the future, I'd love to imagine a world where even if I'm alone, I have the same information as when I'm with a friend, acting as a sighted guide, telling me all the things that are around me and knowing what things are of interest to me. And of course, we'll still want to be with our friends and family, but sometimes you want that even when you're alone.
Hector, Minto, can I just ask you another question, which actually comes from a listener, from a guy called Dave Williams. Narrator's great, but he says it's not compatible with many of the games and apps in the Microsoft Store. So he sits down to play a game with his 9-year-old, and there's a cliff edge where his fun stops and Arlo, his son, his fun goes on.
We are trying to standardise the design principles so that everything that people design and put on the store, the millions of software authors worldwide, start designing around principles that make things accessible. So the tools that we have for designing software that's available via the store should more and more design in great accessibility. So we're hoping that starts to happen. We have exactly the same problem with websites, of course, right? The law and the regulations came in that said websites had to be accessible, and yet we sit here today, 20 years after the regulations came in, with only 3% of the websites. The minute other people are allowed to author, then clearly we run across problems with design principles and accessibility. So we're trying to coach that and actually design it in so that they cannot design stuff that's inaccessible is the strategy. But it's extremely difficult to achieve that. On our own apps...
When can Dave play games with his 9-year-old?
When the voice of people with disabilities is so loud that they cannot, or the law or the regulations demand that they cannot be launched as inaccessible.
Are you not, as Microsoft, the main voice for us as a disabled community?
Well, we want to increasingly be, but Microsoft's core mission is to empower other people to design great solutions. Interestingly, as people go to the cloud, as people start to deliver their software via the cloud and via a set list of tools from all of the suppliers, what will happen is we can hopefully start to design in accessibility at the outset. We want to get to that world with software where it's almost difficult not to create accessible materials.
Hector Minto, Microsoft's Senior Technology Evangelist. So back in the studio, what does all that tell us about where we are and where we're going with assistive technology? Well, we decided to ask Dave. Remember him? He's the blind dad who was stuck at the starting gate while his 9-year-old son is racing ahead with computer games. But Dave Williams is also someone who's worked for assistive technology companies. He trains people to use it, and he's an early adopter of new kit himself. So Dave Williams, I think Lucy will have struck a chord with people when she talked about sudden changes in equipment and upgrades, which can make stuff that we've come to depend on unusable. Is that something we just have to live with, or should more be done to help?
I think more can be done. My concern is that if we rely exclusively on the accessibility that is built into mainstream technology, we risk going into work or going into school tomorrow, switching it on, and maybe it doesn't work. And then there's also the question of what role does accessibility play in the testing process? Smartphone manufacturers have pushed out updates, and suddenly blind people find they can't answer a call. And you wouldn't accept that if you were sighted, would you?
We heard about various bits of equipment there, and of course lots of other companies are making things. There are loads of apps. It's sometimes said the developers pursue areas that interest them rather than the ones that blind consumers need solving. Are we getting what we need?
In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. So the idea that you've got this out of the box accessibility, we definitely do need that. Something like Soundscape, as we heard, there's a lot of information going on there, and some people will find that really overwhelming, and that's going to take some time to adjust, and there will be some people who just won't use it because it's too much. I mean, just listening to it, it's quite stressful, isn't it, sometimes, when you're bombarded with lots of streams of information, particularly when you're trying to navigate with your cane or your dog.
Dave, of course, you raised the issue of computer games specifically and the problems you had in keeping up with your 9-year-old son. What did you think of Hector's response?
I don't think it's a fair comparison to say, well, there are inaccessible web pages out there. Well, of course there are inaccessible web pages out there, but Microsoft don't run the web, but they do run their own app store. So they get to choose what goes into the store and which apps are featured, and there is a certification process that software developers have to go through if they want to be listed in Microsoft Store, Apple Store or Google Store. Come to that, your app has to be age rated to ensure the content is suitable for a certain age group. It also has to be secure, they can't steal your information and stuff like that. And I would like to see accessibility as part of that vetting process.
Dave Williams, thanks very much indeed. What do you think? Are you getting your money's worth? Will this help all visually impaired people, or just those with fairly high skills, or perhaps people in work who can get funding? You can call our action line on 0800 044 044 for 24 hours after the programme. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, or you can click on Contact Us if you do have these skills on our website to get more information and download tonight's and other editions of the programme. That's it from me, Peter Wight, producer Kevin Core, and the team. Goodbye.